Hey guys, welcome back to the BuzWeaver channel. And in our top stories today from the New York Post, and of course, if this were Republicans talking about Democrats, the headline would have been huge blow to Democrats, giant, massive blow to the establishment narrative. So we read, the New York Post, Supreme Court torn over Capitol riot, case that could thwart Trump charge, hundreds of proceedings. That's right. And I think that the Supreme Court should rule on this and get this out of the way. The Senate has already indicated in the impeachment of Donald Trump that he did not incite the riot. The Supreme Court needs to weigh on this, get this out of the way of the Democrat narrative, get this out of the way of the establishment, because it is a carrot on the stick that they dangle as a knee-jerk reaction so that in everyone's minds, the emotional response is that it was an overthrow, an overturning of the election. And in reality, it was individuals simply out there demonstrating, because as we know from the left, it's always mostly peaceful protesting when it comes to them. The Supreme Court's 9 justices wrestled Tuesday with the violence of the January 6, 2021 Capitol riot while considering a case that could upend hundreds of prosecutions, including that of former President Donald Trump. Pennsylvania resident Joseph Fisher had appealed to the High Court to throw out a charge of obstructing an official proceeding, a court based on a technical reading of the 2002 Sarbanes-Oxley Act passed after the Enron account fraud scandal. Remember Burn Baby Burn, when people actually used telephones and it was a recording. And basically the Sarbanes-Oxley Act is, well, we'll just read it here too so you guys can understand. Well, I must have removed it, but basically it's based upon the documentations. So here we'll just go ahead and read it, and it'll outline it here for you. You'll get the context. Attorney Jeffrey Green, representing Fisher, argued that the charge should only apply to defendants who tampered with official papers or other items while storming the Capitol, and that the Justice Department had overstepped by applying Sarbanes-Oxley to his client. So in other words, it is if individuals actually tamper with documentation. So basically what he's saying is if the individuals didn't actually touch the counting of the votes, as it were, then they should not be charged outside of, rioting and other things. The January 6 prosecutions demonstrate that there are a host of felony and misdemeanor crimes that cover the alleged conduct, which is Green is saying here, which I just mentioned. A Sarbanes-Oxley-based Enron-driven evidence tampering statute is not one of them. So as we can see now, as things unfold, because as we mentioned earlier, the Democrats and the establishment wanted to go for that knee-jerk reaction. They wanted to plant the seed in everyone's mind that the Capitol 6 incident, riots and so forth, were an intentional act. And as we know, when Donald Trump was impeached for this, the Senate said he was not involved in inciting a riot. But this continues to be the dangling carrot that the establishment and the Democrats use. This is why this needs to be addressed. Fisher's argument appeared to win over 4 of the court's 6 conservative justices: Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, Chief Justice John Roberts, and Neil Gorsuch. While liberals Ketanji I Can't Identify a Woman Brown Jackson, Elena Kagan, and Sonia Sotomayor seem to lean toward the government. But here's the thing. They're supposed to base their rulings on law, not politics. And of course, everyone turns it into politics. At least 315 accused Capitol rioters have faced the same obstruction charge as Fisher. The same allegations have been lodged by special counsel Jack Smith against Trump, who faces up to 20 years in prison if convicted of the charge. So absolutely absurd that they would be using the Sarbanes-Oxley Act as part of it. But this is what we talk about here on the BuzWeaver channel. Now we're getting the details. Now we're getting those elements that are left out of many of the reportings by the mainstream media, to include the fact that when Trump was impeached, he was not charged. He was acquitted of inciting, and yet they continued to push the narrative. The maximum penalty drew the concern of Gorsuch, who asked Solicitor General Elizabeth Prelogar, arguing that the government would a sit-in that disrupts a trial or access to a federal courthouse qualify? Would a heckler in today's audience qualify, or at the State of the Union address? Would pulling a fire alarm before a vote qualify? Asked Gorsuch, referring to the case against Squad Rep Jamal Bowman. Remember that? He says he didn't realize that pulling the fire alarm, he thought pulling the fire alarm was going to open the door and so forth. So he's making a good point here. If you're going to go after these individuals for charging into the Capitol, and yet you have individuals like Jamal Bowman here who pulled the fire alarm, and you're going to use the Sarbanes-Oxley Act against these individuals as part of the charge, you know, you're going to have to include individuals like Democrat Bowman here as well. Really amazing, is it not, that that we've reached this point. At least now people can hear some of the, and this must be Fisher here, right? Yeah, or it might be. I'm not really sure. But, yeah, there he is. That's him. But it's absolutely extraordinary, is it not, now that the Supreme Court is weighing in on this, and the Democrats and the establishment are not very happy because the Sarbanes-Oxley Act was something they were using. And as you can see, they probably used any other, who knows how many other statutes. But very much like in the Donald Trump case in New York on the fraud case, that was based upon an old consumer statute of fraud back in the, as Kevin O'Leary would say, back in the days of the old appliances to ensure that, you know, that people weren't being price gouged on appliances and so forth. And they were using that against Donald Trump where there was no victim. Deutsche Bank was paid. You know, the insurers got their end of the deal, and the construction was completed, and no one filed a fraud case. But, ladies and gentlemen, as we have talked about here on the BuzWeaver channel, the establishment uniparty in 2024 is so desperate. They are reaching. And, of course, now, of course, we have the criminal trial case there in New York against Donald Trump, suggesting that he was the hush money trial, as they like to call it, which, of course, is just as absurd because Braggs is trying to suggest that it was part of a campaign finance cover-up. But the federal government is not charging Donald Trump with any campaign finance misconduct, as they did with Hillary Clinton. And then when it came to Clinton, she just paid a fine. It was just that easy. There was no trial of Hillary Clinton. They didn't drag her into court, into a civil case, into a criminal case over campaign finance. Not at all. Matter of fact, she even skipped the subpoena to appear before the committee. So, ladies and gentlemen, the exaggeration and the extent that the left and Democrats are going to is absolutely a dog and pony show, because they're trying to do the same thing to Trump. The feds are not pursuing any campaign finance charges against Donald Trump, but Braggs is considering it as part of his charge, but the feds are having nothing to do with it. So I'm not sure what Braggs is going to do here other than just paint Donald Trump in a negative light, which they continue to do. But this ruling here, or the Supreme hearing this, is absolutely extraordinary. And it needs to be ruled on. It needs to be done, because this continuing absurdity of lawfare against Donald Trump and these individual people is absolutely, just un-American. Talking about democracy, threat to democracy, this is it right here. I want to thank all you guys across NewTek, Rumble, BitChute, and Odyssey for your guys' continued support. Thank you so very much. And, of course, to all of you guys here on YouTube, thank you guys for your continued support, the likes, the shares, and the comments. And, of course, below the video, you can find the various social media links that I belong to, so I encourage you guys to follow me there. And if you are using Amazon or order frequently, or a Prime member, you can use my links down below. It helps out the channel and is greatly appreciated. And appearing there on the screen, that will be the channel icon. You guys can click on, if you're watching this on YouTube, you guys can click on that to subscribe, as well as to select notifications. That way you know there's content here on the channel. And I'll see all you guys in the next video.